So if you follow me on Instagram or are an Instagram friend of mine, is that the same thing? You'll know that I just announced I'm going to be shutting down my Instagram account by the end of the weekend, or by the end of Sunday, I guess. I'm not an influencer by any means. I really don't care. I don't really post very often on Instagram. If I choose to post, I will probably put up a community tag, not a community tag, a community post on Booktube. But Instagram, I've been getting all kinds of troll accounts and fake accounts, and I'm just tired of dealing with the administration of that. I don't like when I go on Instagram and I have 5 posts from people I follow that are book related, and then the rest of them are suggestions for baby videos and dash cam accidents. And I'm like, why am I getting these? I don't get it. Why am I getting these? I get why I'm getting the baby ones, because I watch baby stuff because of my daughter and my granddaughter, but I don't need to see them, and I would rather not have my time filled with cruising on Instagram. So that's why I will be gone from there very shortly, and I'm not sad about it. Hey Booktube, it's Kim at middle of the book march, and this is my bookish week for Saturday, December 31st. It is New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's Eve. And had a very low-key Christmas. We were all sick. We're still, I'm mostly recovered, but husband and daughter are still on the edge. So it's been pretty low-key, which is fine. I love quiet and tranquility and relaxation. But we do still want to get together with a family. I'm hoping next weekend we can do some sort of New Year's Eve, Christmassy brunch or get together. Again, something very low-key. So that's what I think we'll do. I had a really good bookish week. I bounced back and I did really well. Had a really good time. So I finished 3 books. I think, most of them were books I was already reading. So let me tell you about them. I finished Stag's Leap by Sharon Olds. Absolutely brilliant. Gorgeous writing. Extremely painful to read. I had to read a few poems at a time and put it down. It's very emotional and very raw, of Sharon Olds describing her marriage as it's breaking down after her husband leaves her, and who she becomes, and how her heart survives the breakdown of her marriage, of a man she never believed would ever leave her, a marriage she believed would never fall apart. She writes some things in here that are so physical and so intimate. It was very difficult at times and felt quite voyeuristic reading some of her poetry. However, it's just sublime. I was so blown away by what she puts on the page, and the word choices, how she structures the lines in the poems. And there were a few that I just did not like, or just didn't understand, or just didn't, they didn't resonate for me as a reader. But there were very few of them. And this is a pretty short collection, but I think she's a brilliant poet, and I do look forward to reading more of her poetry. There's been some criticism that it's very navel-gazily, or very self-analytic or self-centered, or overly emotional. And quite honestly, isn't poetry often like that? And isn't poetry a medium where writers put that stuff down on the page and they create and they craft something out of it? So I thought that's exactly what she did, and I thought this collection is just brilliant and heartbreaking but hopeful. So I really did enjoy that. This was a surprise, and I started reading this electronically, and then I happened to go, I bought it electronically because I got a deal on it. And then I happened to walk into my library the other day and to renew my library card. And my library does not do a library book sale, but they have a cart, literally a 3-shelf cart in the front of the library with books for sale. And this book was on the cart almost in brand new condition for $2. So of course I bought it. And this is Night Crawling by Layla Motley. I have to say, Motley impressed me with this book. I wasn't really planning on reading it, but I wanted to find an ebook that I could read while I was at work and really get into a novel on my Oasis that I recently acquired. And I started reading this one. I hate those. I just hate those permanent marketing stickers. So I'm going to cover it up. This is the story of Kiara, who is a 17-year-old girl living with her older brother. Their father is dead and had been a convicted felon. He died because of undiagnosed cancer while he was incarcerated. And when he was released, he just went downhill very quickly. And their mother was incarcerated, I believe for drug crimes, and they were left alone. And the authorities allowed Kiara's older brother to keep her, so she didn't go into the system of Child Protective Services. But her brother Marcus has left the apartment, and he's not working, and she has no idea how she's going to pay their rent. And they live in a project that's dirty, run down. They live next door to a single mom who is a drug addict with a 9-year-old son, and Kiara pretty much becomes the mother figure for him. So she is trying to pay their rent, buy food, be able to survive. She doesn't really honestly think about school anymore, but she knows that their neighbor Trevor, who's 9, she wants to bring him to school and get him there safely. So that is their background. In order to survive, she resorts to street walking and prostitution and sex work at 17. And unfortunately, very quickly is coerced and forced into the Oakland, California, from the Oakland, California Police Department into prostitution, primarily servicing Oakland police officers. So that is the book. What is impressive to me is she started writing this at the age of 17. This was published when she was 20, and this was longlisted for the Booker Prize. She is a poet. She's a poetry student. This is not autobiographical, and the only part that is she is from Oakland, California, and this was based on a true story of the police department forcing and coercing young women into prostitution. It was hard to read. It was very dark and raw, but her writing is so big, if that makes sense. For her age, for her life experience, it is big and expert and poetic, descriptive. It's not a perfect book, but I'm so impressed by her as an author. And this is her debut novel, and I plan to read whatever she comes out with next. I just was blown away, and again, not a perfect book, but who cares? It was written by a teenager, and it's a debut novel. Clearly, the Booker judging committee thought this was special, and looking forward to reading what she comes out with next. The next book I finished was on audio, and I listened to The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. This was not a book that was on, I had heard of this book for a while, and it's been out for a little bit, and I knew of it. I knew it was out there. I actually saw the trailer for the movie, which I plan on watching today, and I thought, I got it on audio, and I thought this would be a great book to start in the car. I was leery only because I don't do well with fiction on audio, but I started it and it was very easy to listen to. The narrator was really good, had all the right tone and inflection for me, and I just kept listening, and it was so charming. It was such a charming, heartfelt book, and I really loved it. I actually listened to it at home when I got home from work, and I rarely do that unless I am almost done with an audiobook. I might listen to it at home while I'm working. But this one, I just did some dishes and made some food and sat and quietly just listened to the end of this audiobook. I got a little emotional, and got a little choked up at the end. It's a charming story. It's not a book I would typically reach for, but it worked for me. And it's, if you love books and you love bookstores, this is a wonderful book to pick up. And just for that, the warm feeling inside, warm and fuzzy, heartfelt, charming feeling. But this is the story of A.J. Fikry, who opened a bookstore with his wife, who has since passed away. She died in a car accident. He's on the verge of becoming a pretty regular alcoholic. And he has a woman that visits him from the publishing house, showing him the Winter's List. And the story goes on from there. He is grumpy and curmudgeonly and bitter, does not have a lot of hope in life, but he does have a first edition copy of Tamerlane, which to him is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he keeps this volume in a glass case in his store or in his home, and he counts on that book as being his retirement fund. He knows one day he can sell it and quit everything and be fairly well off. Well, he meets the woman from the publishing house. He treats her very poorly. And then very shortly after that meeting, his copy of Tamerlane is gone. It's disappeared. He is beside himself, distraught. And then, on top of all of that, there is an abandoned 2-year-old girl named Maya who is left in his bookstore with a note. And all of this happens around the same time, and the story goes on from there. It's basically a story of renewal and self-acceptance. It is a story of family, of found family, of the love of literature, the love of books. There's so many books that they talk about in this novel. And it's just a story of how relationships grow and how you start to love somebody. A lot of side stories. And I'm assuming it's going to make a great movie. I'm going to watch that this weekend. So I really enjoyed that audiobook, and I was really happy that a novel worked for me on audio. I don't really like listening to fiction on audio, but this one worked really well. Those are the 3 I completed. I'm currently reading Lucy Gayheart by Willa Cather. I'm not sure about this one. Right as I'm filming this, I'm almost a third of the way through. And I really love Willa Cather's writing. I've read 2 other of her novels, Death Comes for the Archbishop and The Lost Woman, which both of them which I really loved. This one I'm not sure. And so I'm considering a DNF, but I think I'm going to try to read a little more and then decide. That's all I'm currently reading right now. So, what, you may ask, are my 2023 plans and goals for reading? I don't have any. I don't make reading goals, and I don't make reading plans for an entire year. I'm just not that type of a reader. I do have a loose structure of what's going to happen next year, but it's all under my whim and whimsy and my choice and free will and my mood. So, but I do want to show you a few things that I know I'm going to be doing. Very soon, I'm going to be starting this book, Hester, by Lori Lico Albanese. This is a book that I'm going to be reading for the Critical Chicks book group that meets towards the last couple of weeks in July. That would be a long time. In January. So I'm going to pick this up very shortly. I am going to be starting A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki for the Blind Eye Book Club. If anybody is still interested, there's still a few days and you don't have to be in on it on the first day of January. I will link the video announcement. I will link the video guidelines down below, but I'm going to be starting this book pretty shortly as well. And I am going to be doing a buddy read with Joe Smith and Heidi from My Reading Life. In the first couple of weeks of January, we're going to be reading Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This is the last Austen novel I need to read. And I've been wanting to read it because I have a video in the works, in my brain, mentally, about Jane Austen's novels. And so we're going to be reading this the first couple of weeks in January. I also have this. I actually have several versions of this. I also have this one. This is one of those new Barnes & Noble French flat paperbacks. I have that. And I also have a hardcover. I have a lot of versions of classic books. I like to do that. I like to do that. And then the other book I really want to pick up in January is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I talked about this in my last video. I want to keep rolling on the Hainish novels, and really looking forward to that one. And I know I will get to it in January. The only other thing I have going, well, not the only other thing, but I'm going to be judging the Booktube Prize in nonfiction next year. Not sure how many rounds, if all of them. If not, I'm not sure, but that's okay. I don't need to know right now. And I am assuming and hoping that Britta and I are going to continue our Irish Women read-a-thon or read-along, and we'll discuss, you know, which novel we're going to pick up next and who we're going to read this year. And I really, really love reading with Britta, and I really love reading Irish women authors. We've got some great books that we've created a list on Goodreads. I think I'm talking too fast. On Goodreads, so we're going to go back to that list and see what we're going to read next. So Britta, if you're watching, let's talk about that and come up with some sort of plan. A loose plan, because I don't plan. I don't like planning. And I think that's it it's going to be a really good kickoff to 2023. The other thing I am going to be doing early next year is rearranging my bookshelves. Now, I've never done a shelf tour. I've never done a bookcase tour or a library tour, but I am going to rearrange. I have an idea of what I want to do. There will probably be some sort of large unhaul, but I keep wanting to say I have a plan, but I don't want to say that because I'm lying. I'm lying again. As I've said about myself, I lie like a rug in all my videos, but I do have a plan to reorganize my bookshelves. After I do that, I will show you. I will give you a very brief overview of a library tour. I'm not going to go book by book. So that's it. That's my last week. That's what I'm currently reading. That's my early plans for 2023. My early ideas, let's put it like that. So let me know in the comments below what you think of any of the books I talked about or any of the ideas I presented. And I will see you in the next video. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye.